Greetings ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our video where we'll be discussing four main questions, which are as follows. 1. What is the effect of pesticide residuals in the environment? 2. How do filtration membranes and water purification work? 3. What are the environmental problems associated with phthalates? And lastly, we will be discussing how wastewater byproducts can be reused. Pesticides. What are pesticides? Pesticides are chemical substances that can be used to kill pests such as fleas, moths, and cockroaches. They are not only used to kill these pests, but to keep them away from crops to increase farm or livestock production. After application, there is a certain amount of pesticides that remain or is sprayed on the environment, and it is called pesticide residuals. Although pesticides play an important role in the crop or livestock production, they have their own disadvantages as they are exposed to living organisms in different environments. Different environments such as water, soil, and air. This brings us to our main topic: what is the effect of pesticide residuals in different environments? Let us remember that pesticide residuals is the amount of pesticide that remain or is sprayed on the environment. We will first talk about water. As the pesticide is sprayed, it may miss the intended target and be sprayed directly to the field or the soil. The residuals is sometimes washed away by rainfall to the nearest water stream, or it leaches to the underground water, thereby contaminating the water. The water might be poisonous to aqua life depending on the type of pesticide used. The most common pesticide used in crops is copper sulfate, and it is very toxic to fishes and other living organisms found in water, thus reducing marine life. The contaminated water is also poisonous to humans when consumed at a certain concentration because there is a certain limit that is allowed for human consumption. Now we'll talk about soil. Excessive use of the pesticide is very harmful to microorganisms found in the soil, such as fungi, bacteria, and earthworms. The residual can kill these living organisms and reduce soil quality, therefore less production of crops. Then lastly, we'll talk about air. Amount of pesticides left behind can too cause air pollution. The pesticide residual particles can be carried by wind to the atmosphere or can also be evaporated by the sun to the atmosphere. These particles can react with other chemicals in the atmosphere to form a pollutant called tropospheric ozone, which pollutes the ozone in the troposphere, resulting in smog that is very harmful if a person breathes it. This smog is also responsible for damaging crops and trees. Our next topic is: how do filtration membranes in water purification work? What is membrane filtration? Membrane filtration is a chemical technique or approach used for water purification. It is an evaluation of the quality of water using filter to trap microorganisms, and an effective method for the isolation and numbering of these microorganisms. The main aim of the membrane filtration method is the determination of specific coliform groups or colonies in water, and the assessment of water quality by analysis and enumeration of bacterial colonies through the colony encounter. How does it work? One will need a membrane filtration assembly, which consists of a funnel, a carbon disc, a stainless base, a filter flask, a locking ring, a rubber stopper, and a vacuum pump. The test water is diluted and poured into the funnel from the top to the bottom part of the funnel, which is attached to a locking ring that controls the flow of the sample. Then the membrane filter is placed on the carbon disc or held by the stainless base. There is a rubber stopper down the base to control the flow of water to the filter flask, which in turn connected or attached to a vacuum motor that provides an opposite pressure to allow the suction of water through the membrane filter into the filtration unit. After filtration, the trapped microbial mass on the membrane surface is transferred into a nutrient-containing peridish for 24 to 48 hours incubation at 35 degrees Celsius to allow the microorganisms' growth and colonies formation for the facilitation of the analysis. For the quantitative analysis of water, the assessment is done by enumeration of the bacterial colonies using a colony encounter. One colony of bacteria represents one single bacterium in 100 ml of the test water. And for the water quality assessment, the identification of the water microorganism after isolation and incubation through staining methods, biochemical tests, and microscopic observations. Now let's look into the advantages and disadvantages of this method. We will start with the advantages. Achieving perfect efficiency regardless of certain external parameters such as concentration of the dissolved solids in the sample, external pressure, flow rate, etc. The results are available after a short time. It facilitates the isolation and inventory of individual bacterial colonies. It doesn't require high energy or chemicals. It grants the removal of killing agents from the water and requires only few preparation steps. Now looking at the disadvantages, such as pores fouling or breaking after a certain time due to the accumulation of suspended materials on the membrane surface, hence reducing the volume of water passing through. There may also occur bacterial overgrowth if the water contains many microorganisms. This method also requires the dilution of water in a sterile diluent to make sure that there is enough volume to filter on the surface of the membrane filter. Therefore, despite its few disadvantages, we can conclude by saying that the membrane filtration is an efficient method for the isolation and enumeration of the microorganisms from the contaminated water sample. This approach can determine the number of microbial populations in a test water by counting the discrete colonies, unlike other methods. Our third topic of the day is the environmental problems associated with phthalates. Phthalates are a group of artificial chemicals which are used extensively in a variety of consumer products like building materials, car parts, toys for the young, as well as packaging, to mention a few. They are utilized as softeners in PVC. Di-2-ethyl-hexyl phthalate, dibutyl phthalate, benzyl butyl phthalate, and diisodetyl phthalate, abbreviated DEHP, DBP, BBP, and DIBP respectively, are considered to be in the reproduction and are categorized as toxic. Phthalates are not bound chemically to the polymer PVC, meaning over a period of time they discharge off from the product and diffuse into the atmosphere and the environment. Researchers have in recent years discovered health effects which include abnormalities in reproduction and development effects in animals in amount of phthalate given to animals that are approximately the same as those that human beings are exposed to. Thyroid effects, before time puberty in females, female tract disease, fertility impairment, and damage to sperms are some of the health issues associated with phthalates shown in the epidemiologic studies of human impacts. Phthalates may as well show a risk for aquatic life as well as terrestrial ecosystem in the locality of industries that produces phthalate. Bioaccumulative phthalates have been found in aquatic animals. DEHP has the possibility to biodegrade in aerobic conditions, whereas BBP has proved to be toxic to water animals and may bring about lengthy disadvantageous effects in aquatic environments. Endocrine disruption in fish are what studies show about BPP, causing mammals and birds to suffer from food chain exposures. Phthalates can cause harm to pregnant women and their children. Phthalates can disturb and cause damage to the endocrine system. Studies indicate that phthalates can lead to early delivery of babies, lower IQ, and suffering development to social communication and behavioral issues are some of the encounters that babies born from mothers that were exposed to high amounts of phthalates show, according to studies, including effects on the genital development of male infants in the pregnancy process. Childhood obesity, cardiovascular issues, cancer, and asthma are some of the problems that studies have found to be connected to phthalates. Studies show a connection between exposure to phthalates and a poorer functioning memory and intelligence. Highest risk children have shown reduced verbal comprehension and perceptual reasoning. Due to the evidence gathered, phthalates are not good for the environment and hence exposure to them is harmful. They affect unborn and young children. Phthalates like DEHP, DBP, and BBP utilized in children's toys and childcare articles, which concentrations over 0.1% have been restricted by the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act of 2009 due to the content of health around these phthalates. Alternatives to some phthalates are used. Our last topic of the day is how wastewater byproducts can be reused. What is wastewater? It is any water that has been contaminated. The contaminants can be physical, chemical, and biological. Wastewater can contain anything from food scraps, detergents, feces, urine, hair, bacteria, runoff rainwater, acids, and anything that can be harmful for living organisms. Wastewater goes through a process called wastewater treatment process to remove most of the contaminants to produce clean water that is safe for the environment. Wastewater treatment takes place in 3 steps. The primary treatment step. Screening takes place where organic and inorganic matter is removed. The secondary treatment further removes suspended residual organic matter from the primary treatment. Biodegradable dissolved in colloidal matter is removed using aerobic and anaerobic treatment. Sewage sludge is removed. Then lastly, the tertiary treatment. It removes small suspended solids through filters, which is osmosis. Water is further cleaned then distributed to streams. It is during this process that we get the byproduct of wastewater. The 2 major wastewater byproducts are sewage sludge and biogas. Sewage sludge is deposited from the wastewater treatment system to the sewage sludge system plant, where it is dried and reused as fertilizer in agricultural croplands, or it is mixed with other materials and sold as biosolid compost, which is used for agricultural purposes and landscaping. These biosolids have been able to help in food security since it supplies the soil with essential nutrients and thus increasing crop yields. Biogas is produced when sludge decomposes in a process called anaerobic digestion, which means the absence of oxygen. Biogas is used in rural areas as cooking gas. It is also used to produce electricity. It can be stored for water heating, and it can replace compressed natural gas to power vehicles and fill gas cylinders. When biogas is upgraded, biomethane is produced by removing carbon dioxide, water, and hydrogen sulfide from the gas. This is then used to power vehicles, generate electricity, and produce heat. That is all we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching and listening. Please do not forget to social distance, wear your mask, and stay safe. Thank you.